All right, let's get right into it. You've seen this movie before, right? Some huge disaster hits, a massive scandal breaks, or a crisis unfolds. And what happens next? A giant public inquiry gets launched. It comes with all these big promises. We're going to get answers, there will be accountability. But then, what actually happens? It almost always seems to unravel. It gets dragged into politics, tangled up in confusion, and in the end, it just fizzles out. It's a huge letdown. But here's the thought. What if the problem isn't the people running these things? What if the problem is the system itself?
I mean, it's a question we've all asked ourselves, hasn't it? It's so frustratingly familiar. You could be talking about a royal commission, a congressional hearing. It doesn't matter. These are supposed to be the moments where we get clarity, where justice is served. But instead, they just get stuck, bogged down, derailed, and the actual truth, it just seems to get completely lost in all the noise. So yeah, why does this keep happening over and over again? Well, the reasons are pretty much a textbook list of systemic failure, if you think about it. First off, these inquiries get turned into political weapons. Then, the media jumps in and boils this incredibly complex investigation down to a simple good guys versus bad guys story. And while that's happening, what about the actual evidence? Well, the crucial stuff often gets buried because it doesn't fit a convenient narrative. Oh, and the scope? It just blows up until it's totally unmanageable. And even if, by some miracle, they get some solid findings, those can just be twisted or totally ignored down the line. It's not one single thing, it's the whole system that's broken.
Okay, so if the problem is baked into the system, then the solution has to be systemic too, right? You can't just patch it. This leads us to a pretty radical idea. What if we stopped treating the search for truth like a political game and started treating it like an engineering problem? What if we could actually build an operating system for truth? Seriously, just think about that for a second. Instead of just hoping for the best, relying on goodwill and dusty old procedures, what if you could build an inquiry on an architecture that was engineered from the ground up to guarantee integrity? A system that wasn't just supposed to find the facts, but was specifically designed to fight back against all those failures we just talked about.
So, the heart of this whole thing is a component called a Sealed Sovereign Instrument Annex, or SSIA for short. Now, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like the black box flight recorder in an airplane. It's exactly the same idea. The SSIA creates a read-only, totally unchangeable record of the entire investigation. It locks in the rules, it locks in the scope, all the integrity checks, right from day one, before anyone, and I mean anyone, can get their hands on it and try to interfere.
Okay, but how does it actually do that? Well, it uses something called the smart tag system. And this is clever. Just imagine a digital tamper-proof receipt for every single thing, every piece of evidence, every interview transcript, every single step someone takes in the analysis. It all gets a unique digital tag. And this tag defines exactly what it is and, crucially, what you're allowed to do with it. Maybe it's tagged Analyze Only. Then boom, it's locked into a permanent, auditable ledger. This means nothing can be secretly changed, deleted, or misused. It's all out in the open.
All right, so let's walk through how this actually works in the real world. This whole architecture is broken down into 4 distinct phases, and think of each one like a security checkpoint, an integrity gate. You absolutely cannot move on to the next phase until you have proven verifiably that you've passed all the checks for the phase you're in. It creates this super structured flow that builds trust layer by layer at every single step of the way.
Phase 1 is all about preventing what you might call the original sin of so many failed inquiries, getting started for all the wrong reasons. The huge risk here is that a commission gets launched purely as a political weapon. So the safeguard? It's a mandatory, totally auditable checklist. Before anyone can even think about handing out the incredible powers that come with a commission, you first have to prove that it's necessary. You have to show that other tools won't work and that it can actually be run with integrity. If you can't pass that checklist, simple, no commission. Now, once you're through that first gate, you hit phase 2. And this is the bedrock, the foundation. The big danger here is that a really compelling story or a popular narrative takes over and hijacks the whole process, pushing everyone toward conclusions that just aren't backed by the facts. The safeguard here is incredibly powerful. The system literally forbids you from making any findings or conclusions until a complete audible evidence spine is built. What does that mean? It means you have to map out all the evidence, even the stuff that contradicts your theory. You map out all the known gaps. Basically, you're forced to build a map of reality first before you're ever allowed to start interpreting it.
Okay, so you've built your evidence spine. Now, we move to phase 3. And this is where the inquiry really gets its teeth. It can compel testimony, demand evidence. It has real power. And the risk, of course, is that that power gets abused. You see unfair processes or that dreaded scope creep where the whole thing just spirals out of control.
But this is where the architecture acts like a governor on an engine. It puts hard limits on that power. Every single action is governed by strict, pre-agreed rules of fairness. And it's all logged on that permanent smart tag ledger where anyone can check it. It keeps the power in check. And that brings us to the final phase, phase 4, which is all about how these inquiries end. Or, how they die. The risk is a huge one. After all that time, all that money, all that work, the findings just get cherry-picked. They're twisted for political points, or worse, just quietly buried and forgotten. So this final phase is all about a secure handover. The Commission's power is switched off, cleanly, and its final report is sealed as one complete, unchangeable record. People can cite it, they can read it, but they can't secretly go in and rewrite history.
So, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds huge, right? Super complex. But the real genius here, the thing that gives the whole system its integrity, isn't some big, complicated master rule. No, it's actually the opposite. The trust comes from its smallest, most fundamental building block. And this is really where that engineering mindset just shines through. Think about it. Trust in this entire massive structure isn't imposed from the top down. It's built from the ground up. It all starts with something tiny, something microscopic, indivisible, and provably secure. Which brings us to this amazing concept, the smart-tagged atomic leaf. That's what it's called. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the foundational atom of the entire system. Just picture the smallest possible piece of meaning you can have. A single fact, one single rule, one single action. Each one of these is tagged, it's sealed, and it can be trusted all by itself. So the entire system? It's really just a carefully structured galaxy of these tiny, trusted atoms.
Let's break down what makes up one of these atomic leaves. It's actually pretty straightforward. First, every single one gets a unique smart tag ID, kind of like a digital serial number that can't be faked. Then, it has an authority state, which clearly defines what its power is, like analyze only, so it can't be used for something else. It also has only one very specific, very limited function. Its job is tiny. And this is the kicker. It has integrity locks. These are hard-coded rules that it is physically, structurally incapable of breaking. This is it. This is how you build provable, trustworthy restraint from the tiniest possible piece all the way up.
Okay, so a system like this is actually possible to build. But what's the alternative? What happens if we just stick with the broken models we have now? What's the real cost of doing that? And this is the crucial takeaway. Doing nothing, just letting things stay as they are, is not a neutral choice. It's an actively damaging and incredibly expensive one. And that leads to this really important idea called the cost of delay collapse. Now, this isn't just about an investigation taking a few extra months. It's way more serious than that. It's about a compounding, cascading breakdown. When a crucial inquiry gets stalled or just fails completely, the costs, we're talking financial costs, damage to our institutions, and the erosion of public trust, they don't just add up, they multiply. They create this waterfall of damage that becomes almost impossible to claw your way back from.
And you can really see that escalation right here. If you delay back in phase 1, you lose legitimacy before you've even started. The whole thing feels tainted from the get-go. If you delay in phase 2, well, that's when critical evidence can literally decay, get lost, or just disappear forever. And if you fumble the landing in phase 4, you strand the truth. The entire effort, all that work, becomes completely useless. See how that works? The price of doing nothing doesn't just go up, it skyrockets. Waiting isn't free. It's actively turning potential answers into permanent losses.
And so all of this leaves us with one last, and I think unavoidable question. The thinking, the architecture, the technology to build systems that have provable trust, it exists. It's here, right now. We can engineer our inquiries to be fair, to be transparent, and to be fundamentally resistant to corruption. So if we know we have the tools to do this, what is the real cost to our institutions, to our wallets, and maybe most importantly to our shared belief in the truth of choosing not to?